Have you ever stopped and wondered why some people just seem to soar, while others, who want success just as badly, never quite get off the ground? Well, today we're going to dive into a really powerful philosophy that has a very direct answer to that question. It's called the Law of Diligence, and it's drawn from the teachings of Bishop David Oyenepo. So let's jump right in and see what this is all about. You know, it's a question that pretty much everyone asks at some point. Why is there such a huge gap between dreaming of success and actually making it happen? The philosophy we're looking at today doesn't just ask the question, it gives a very clear and honestly a pretty challenging answer. So right at the heart of this whole way of thinking is something called the success paradox. It sounds complicated, but it's actually a super simple idea with huge implications for how we go after our goals. Let's break it down.
And here's the paradox in a nutshell. We all want the high life, right? The rewards, the recognition, all the good stuff that comes with success. But the real question is, how many of us are actually willing to embrace the hard work that gets you there? This teaching is super clear on this. If you want to be a high flyer, you've got to build it on a foundation of serious effort.
This quote really just cuts straight to the point, doesn't it? The idea here is that value isn't something that just magically appears for us. It's something we have to actively create. And from this point of view, doing nothing isn't just a missed opportunity. It's literally a dead-end street.
Okay, so if sitting around and waiting isn't the answer, then what is? And that's where we get to the real core of this teaching, a powerful principle known as the Law of Diligence.
I gotta say, I love how this is framed. Think of it like a person's full name. The first name is hard work. That's the initial action you take. The middle name is diligence. That's the consistent, steady effort. And what's the family name? The name you earn through all that? Success. It's a really clever way to show how all these ideas are just fundamentally linked together.
And to really back this up, the teaching points to some of the most influential figures in the Bible. You have Jesus, who doesn't just talk, he says, "My Father works, and I work." Then you've got the Apostle Paul, who straight up says his incredible impact was because he outlabored everyone. The message is crystal clear. In this philosophy, work isn't some chore, it's seen as a sacred act.
And this all leads to a really powerful, and for some people, a very challenging idea. Your work defines your worth. It's not about your dreams or your job title. In this view, your real value is a direct result of the value you put out into the world through your own labor.
So this isn't just some abstract idea, right? It's laid out as a clear choice, a crossroads. You can go down one of two very different paths, and each one leads to a totally different destiny.
Now, pulling from the wisdom in the book of Proverbs, we see this incredible contrast. On one side, you have the diligent hand, a symbol of focused hard work, and the promise, authority and wealth. But on the other side, you have the slothful hand, which represents laziness, and its destiny is poverty and being controlled by others. It's a pretty stark comparison.
The consequences of doing nothing are painted with this really powerful image of an empty building. I mean, think about it. You can have the most beautiful building in the world, but if you leave it empty and unused, it just falls apart. And the argument is, the exact same thing happens to us as people. Without the active engagement of work, our potential just starts to decay.
Okay, but what about people who start with a huge advantage? You know, like they inherit a ton of money. Well, this philosophy has a really fascinating take on that. It basically argues that true, lasting success can never just be handed to you. And this is such a crucial point. You can be handed wealth, a business, whatever, but you can't be handed the character, the wisdom, or the grit that created it in the first place. According to this teaching, that's something every single one of us has to build for ourselves.
And that leads to a pretty blunt warning. What you don't work for, you end up wasting. The idea is that if you don't go through the struggle, if you don't go through the process of actually earning it, you just won't have the character or the wisdom to hang on to it.
The story of Isaac is used here as a perfect case study. Look, he inherited an unbelievable amount of wealth from his father, Abraham. But the teaching makes a point to say it was Isaac's own work, sowing seeds during a famine and getting 100 times return that really cemented his legacy and made him a powerhouse in his own right.
So if diligence is the absolute key, where does it come from? Is it something you're just born with, like a talent? This teaching gives a really surprising, and I think an incredibly empowering answer. Nope, not at all.
And this, for me, is maybe the most powerful part of this whole thing. Diligence isn't some special gift that's only given to a lucky few. It's a choice. It's a decision that every single one of us can make every single day, no matter what our starting point is.
This modern-day story just drives the point home perfectly. Here's an accountant out of a job who hears this message, and he makes a choice. Instead of waiting for a job to fall in his lap, he starts using what he has, his car, to run a taxi service. That one decision to just work was the first step on a path that led him to build his own home and a thriving business.
So what's the bottom line here? It's really a call to take ownership, to be the one who creates value, who contributes. Because the alternative, according to this philosophy, is that you become a liability, dependent on others and unable to shape your own future.
And so it leaves us all with a question that's both incredibly simple and incredibly profound. If diligence isn't a gift, but a choice, what choice are you going to make today?